Hi, it's Bill with the Late to Grid podcast, and I am back in the Atomic Autosports studio to bring you another interview with an exciting guest to learn more about their motorsports journey. Today, I'm joined by Eric Baun with Autobahn Motorsports. And Eric, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. Excited to be here.
It only took 17 times to do that intro.
Oh, it's all good.
Well, before we get into the motorsports stuff, you're no stranger behind the microphone, right? Drummer in a band?
Yeah, I used to play drums. Still play pretty daily, honestly. Keeping the cardio going more than anything because I hate running. But yeah, I used to play in a band back in the day, Wreak Havoc. Toured a little bit, recorded some albums, but yeah, had fun in the studio. So the microphone's not a big deal, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I've seen some of your posts and your videos with the drums. Mm-hmm. Do your neighbors complain? Absolutely not. I'm really surprised. The one neighbor is always like, hey, I would like you to bring this outside and play. I'm like, well, I don't think the rest of the neighborhood would like that. But yeah, thankfully, my neighbors get along with me pretty well. So they don't mind the drumming. They don't mind the cars. So everything's good. That's great. So you got involved in motorsports through Jeff and Steve with Junk Player Special. Mm-hmm. How did you get connected with them? Well, so I've always kind of been around cars, got into the show car stuff more than anything, specifically Volkswagens, and then just kind of met Steve and then his son Mike through that. And then we're part of a car club, Lowered Expectations for a while. We did a lot of fun stuff with there. And then, you know, I think it was 2013, I did my first track day in my Volkswagen and kind of, you know, drank the Kool-Aid and never looked back after that point. And I just remember there was one Christmas party and Mike looked at me, he's like, hey, my dad needs people for his team. And the rest was kind of history after that. Kind of started crewing with them. And then one day Jeff looked at me and goes, when you get in the car? Okay, if you guys trust me enough, whenever you want, here we go. So it's, you know, like I said, drank the Kool-Aid and never looked back. Yeah. Why Volkswagens? Well, I think at the time, like back in the BMX days, it was around the skate park. A lot of the, I'll call them the cool guys, had it, had the Volkswagen. So everybody kind of wanted to emulate them, if you will. So went with the Mark IV Golf on that one and had started the journey there and just kind of went from there and to build what you got and run what you got type scenario. So, right. And what was it? So in 2013, what was that first track day? That first track day was out at Nelson's Ledges. Mm-hmm. Just a normal HPD track day. And funny enough, the car that I ended up driving for my very first actual competition, the Jetta that we used to run for Junk Player, they actually, for the beginner group, since, you know, had to have somebody out in front, I believe it was Brian Bartsey actually drove the Jetta as the like pace car, if you will. Oh, yeah? Behind. And I was like, pretty funny years later to actually get in that car and do my first race at Nelson's was pretty interesting. Oh, that's neat. Did you ever think that you'd get involved with wheel-to-wheel racing? Yes and no. Like always wanted to, but never knew how to get there type thing. And it was just kind of the stars kind of aligned and met the right people. And I've been very thankful, been able to get connected with the right people to pull me along, if you will, and teach me the right things. Yeah. So that first track day, do you remember some of the feelings and the excitement or the anxiety that you were going through? Yeah, I mean, pretty much it was all that. Just excitement that, oh my gosh, I'm here. And then it was also the fear of, I put this car together. Is it going to hold up? Like, you know, going down to turn one flat out, like a little bit of brake, turn in. It's like, is this car going to hold up to that? Yeah, it's just being the other cars on track, you know, that first one kind of whizzing by because, you know, obviously I wasn't pushing that hard because I did and I went off. So yeah, it was definitely interesting, but it was a good feeling. I don't want to say it kept you safe, but it was almost like, okay, you didn't push too hard. But then the more I got acclimated to it, it was like, okay, let's keep spinning this thing and see what happens. And how long of time-wise was it between that first track day and when you did your first wheel to wheel with Junk Player Special? Honestly, it was a couple years, honestly, because I started, like I said, started off crewing. I think it was 2 or 3 seasons that I was crewing with Junk Player before actually getting behind the wheel. Now, when I was doing those crewing days, I was also driving on some practice days on Fridays to kind of get the feel of it as well. So it didn't have any issues there as far as, you know, traffic on the track, you know, not worried about point buys or anything like that, and just getting going with it. But yeah, it was a couple years until I actually got the
the first wheel-to-wheel drive, if you will. So
yeah. So crewing, and then you were able to do some Friday test days. Mm-hmm. How did that help you prepare for ultimately getting behind the wheel for a race weekend and driving, close to 2-hour stints?
It was really nice to see how the organizations work, the rules and everything, how pit stops operate. Just watching people in and out of the car, helping people in and out of the car, knowing what I'd be in for, like pit lane procedures, just everything around the track that you really should know, like that they go over in the new drivers briefings and stuff. But it was nice having that for a few years of just kind of, okay, this is the lay of the land. This is how a weekend operates. Just knowing all that going into it versus just going into it completely blind going, oh, what do we do here? All right. I kind of knew that, so I wasn't anxious about that. So all I really had to do was think about driving.
Oh, yeah. I think that's really interesting that you had that perspective, because a lot of folks just might pay for a seat, show up and just jump in.
Yeah.
They don't understand how everything's orchestrated and how a pit stop goes down and what is happening outside the car. As a driver, you're just sitting there maybe jumping in or out. You don't see everything that goes on. So that was probably super valuable to have that. That experience.
Yeah. And just knowing, like, it helped with situations in the car too, not having to radio in or like, oh my gosh, I got to bring this car into the pit now. Something happened. Just like, okay, this happened. How do I drive around this? And what have we done in the past? So those situations definitely helped.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the tracks you've raced at. So we talked about Nelson Ledges. I know that you've raced at Pitt. Where else have you raced?
Mid-Ohio, and then Watkins, Glen. And then I did just a track day down in Virginia at Dominion Raceway. There was a big Volkswagen event down there. So actually, Steve took Stella down there, and then I took my car down there and ran down there. So just one off there. That was, like I said, HPD. But yeah, as far as car tracks, yeah.
Just so the listeners know, Steve didn't take his wife or his dog. Stella is what they call the car they race.
Yes. Yeah. Good story on that one. Everybody thinks that we, are just drinking all the Stella beer in the pit, and that was the name of the car. But yeah, but it's kind of evolved. This is Stella 2.5 actually at this point, but yeah, it came along.
So, what of all those tracks, which one's been your favorite?
So all those tracks, definitely going to be Watkins Glen as far as favorite. Just the sheer size of it, the speeds there, and just kind of the history there too. Just the old F1 and just NASCAR and everybody that goes there currently. It's kind of nice to be like, see that track on TV. Oh yeah, I've raced there. Yeah.
Any exciting moments that you can share with us about, the bus stop everyone talks about, or maybe just trying to learn a new track?
Yeah, I mean, so learning the new track, I know everybody's going with iRacing. I'm balling on a budget, so I definitely did the Forza experience, if you will. But I drove so many laps in Forza before going to Watkins Glen that for the most part, I had a good idea of which way the turns went. Granted, feels a little different in real life versus the simulator, if you will. But yeah, really the bus stop is definitely in real life something. Okay, got to be a little braver than you do on the simulator.
Right.
But yeah, I've lost the aim solo off the dash a few times going over the gator bumps in the thing. Just like look up and I'll be in the toe of the boot. I'm like, where'd the aim go? Oh, it's at my foot. What do you know?
Oh boy.
But yeah, for the most part, no hair raising experiences or anything at Watkins. Just plenty of fun. Going up through the S's, climbing that hill at full throttle. That's a fun experience. Just even with the rear of the car kind of moving around a little bit, it's an experience.
Oh, I bet. And that was in the Volkswagen there as well? Mm-hmm. Ever driven rear wheel drive?
Not in anything competition wise. I did a track day in an old BMW E90 I had, so all wheel drive on that. But yeah, that was just my daily driver because the Volkswagen wasn't ready, and traded in a week later.
So in one word, what do you love about karting?
Probably rush.
Yeah.
Just the sheer rush of it.
Let's talk a little bit more about go-karting. So you've been doing the endurance racing and the HPD stuff. When did karting enter the picture?
So this is the 5th year that I've been in karting. It just kind of came along as looking at everything money-wise. Okay, it's a little more affordable than some of the car races, or at least it used to be that way.
Yeah, I think you should put affordable in quotations.
Yes, very definitely affordable in quotations. But yeah, a friend talked to through BMX actually kind of got me into that. And he's like, oh, you're into racing cars? When you come out and race karts? He's raced karts for a long time, and just kind of another one of those, picked up a kart and didn't look back. So it's definitely helped me in the car driving as well, getting a lot more of that wheel-to-wheel experience, just taking all the anxiety and everything out of it. Because, not having a body around you or harnesses or anything, it's like
you're exposed.
You're right there with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely just the sheer rush of it. Like I always joke, I will liken driving the car like the back straight at Mid Ohio, going down there. How in Talladega Nights, the guy's going down the street drinking his macchiato. It's like, that's really what it feels like. In the car, I have that much time. Whereas the cart, it almost feels like you have to be on it every second because, oh, there's the turn. And just the sheer inputs have to be just that much more precise because, you turn the wheel in a car a quarter of the way. Oh, okay. It takes a second to move and it's not that much. You move, the steering wheel on the cart just a little bit and then you're pointed, the complete opposite direction. Right. So it's definitely that rush of like just having to be on top of it and like everything's so much more in the moment. You have time to think, but not the time you do in the car.
When you got started, were you doing arrive and drives or did you buy a complete package?
I bought a complete package. I actually went down to, there's a good swap meet every year that they hold down the Ohio Valley Karting Association. They hold a big swap meet, and I went down there with my buddy that was getting me into it, Dylan, and I just bought a used kart there, and admittedly, it was the wrong kart for what I was doing. I bought a shifter kart chassis for a 4-cycle.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time, it was like, okay, what I could afford and what was available at the swap meet that year, and I drove that chassis for about 2 years and like kind of getting the hang of it. And then I switched to the chassis that a lot of my friends were kind of on, just kind of be like, okay, well, we go to Boss and I beat you and we get in these things and I can't hang. Something's here. So I'm like, all right, if I put myself on equal equipment and I still can't hang, it's me. But as soon as I got on that equal equipment and something that would actually respond to the tuning I was doing, it was like, all right, here we go.
Right. Yeah, that swap meet, it's held at the Roberts Center.
Yes.
It is. Even for people that don't go karting, I say go. It is a blast. You get to see all kinds of equipment, see all kinds of racers. They have some good sessions where people can learn about different things. Do you still go back there and look for equipment?
I went one other year since. I was going to go down this year, but I had something come up. Wasn't able to go down. But yeah, definitely it's on my calendar again this year because I need a few things. So
it is a hike for us. It's about 4 hours.
Yeah. That's always the thing of like, okay, I know I'm going to save some money, but at the same time, do I just pay the shipping to not drive the 4 hours?
Yeah.
But
right. So so now you're running 4-cycle LO206. I'm going to guess.
Yes.
Where's your home track?
My home track is always going to be Fremont. I've cut my teeth out there. Live in Lorain now, but always been an Erie County boy. I grew up in Huron. So Fremont is definitely the first track I ever ran on the car. And like I said, where I cut my kind of teeth there. Great friends there. I will have a track next year opening about a mile from my house there in Lorain.
Yeah.
So I will kind of be a transplant, but I will still always claim Fremont as my home track.
And you go to some other tracks because you're doing the Buckeye series.
Yes. Yeah, so we travel around. Fremont and Thompson are kind of my go-to tracks. I'm actually kind of smack dab in the middle of them, which is kind of nice. But we do other stuff in the Buckeye series. Like they just ran Wilmington 2 weeks ago, I think it was. Unfortunately, I was unable to make that one. I discovered my cart was broken, crack in the chassis as I was prepping for everything. So kind of sat that one out.
I saw the pictures of that cracked well that you posted on Facebook.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of a common thing. I actually have 2 that I need to repair this winter, but...
Was it a seat stay?
Yeah, seat stay broken on it. I didn't have this issues in the past, but I did move up to the master's class, which is a higher weight. So I'm thinking the additional 30 pounds of ballast on the cart is causing an issue on that. So that's another thing this year I'm going to look at is weight distribution on that. See if I can get the ballast a little bit more spread out so it's not going to keep cracking the seat stays.
Right. But you've done some things beyond Buckeye, right?
Yeah. I've also ran with Cup Karts. We've done the Grand Nationals for a few years out in Indiana, a big big track out there, Newcastle Motorsports. It's a great track as well. But yeah, go out there and do the Grand Nationals out there. It's always a fun event, brings a ton of karts out. You know, we're talking in the hundreds of karts. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love the karting community. I love how it is so fundamental to our sport. You know,
absolutely.
All the great racers start there, much like yourself. It's so fun. I don't want to say it's simple, but yet it is, right? Mm-hmm. You have a chassis that has no suspension other than what you do with the tires.
Right.
It's the purest form of motorsports.
Yeah, it really is. You know, I've heard that from a couple of my friends, you know, that actually have raced like SCCA events. Doug Marsh used to be an SCA champion.
Yes.
You know, he has told me that multiple times, like there's no better racing experience as a kart over a car. So, you know, and for him to say that too, it's like, okay, I take that a little bit more to heart, you know?
Yeah. So doing the karting while you're also racing cars, how has karting helped you be a better driver on the big tracks?
Well, really, focus is definitely one thing. Like I was saying before, the just reaction time needed in the kart versus a car. It's helped me recover in certain instances in the car where it starts to get out of shape a little bit. And before I'd not so much struggle to maintain it, but like I would always spin. Those first couple of years, there wasn't a session on track that I didn't spin the car.
Yeah.
But hey, you don't find the limits until you go past them, right?
That's exactly right.
But that definitely with the kart control, it's helped me with the car control more than anything. And just situational awareness more than anything as well. Just with the other cars or karts on the track, just people being that close to you at speeds, you know, negotiating a corner, not being like, oh, I got to brake. Oh, I'm scared. I'm just like, no, just fight into the corner. It's really opened that up. And then racecraft, especially too, has definitely brought a lot out with that. So with the, you know, car HPD, you know, you're used to, okay, I got to give this guy a point by. So you're always trying to find where you want to give him that point by. But with the kart, you know, it's just, and there's no mirrors either. So you kind of got to rely on your senses around you. And so definitely the situational awareness has been helped and heightened by the kart. I always tell everybody I did it backwards, you know, did some car stuff first and then I got into karts. But yeah, you know, it's definitely played back and forth. And now there has been weekends when I was doing kart one weekend, car the next weekend, that some stuff did screw me up because there is some stuff that you do in a car that you can't do in a kart, like curbs, certain tracks, like, you know, cars, you can take the curb pretty much anywhere. Karts, depending on the curb, they're almost like a launch ramp more than anything. So it's just remembering which ones I can hit and which ones to stay off of. And it's like, back and forth, just remembering that. And I've launched myself a few times.
That's an interesting way to pass, go over them.
Yeah, right? little jump.
Yeah. Where do you hope all the karting leads? Like, what do you have planned for next year? What's your big goal with karting? So
next year with the track opening in Lorain, I'm really kind of going to focus most of my time there. Just being so close to home, not traveling as much, still kind of wrangling in finances from the past years of racing, spending a little bit more than I should have, but getting everything back on track with that and just kind of developing the kart program, hopefully being able to offer some driver coaching this year as well, or this upcoming year as well at the track, just being that close to it. Want to give some back. You know, I've had so much help these past 5 years with friends helping me with, you know, racecraft, kart setup and all that. It's like, I want to give that back to, you know, who is ever coming up. Cause I know there's going to be, with a brand new track, there's going to be plenty of people that are going to be hopping into it for the first time. So I kind of want to offer that. And I would like to do, you know, a couple one-off events again next year. Like I would really want to get to Mid-Ohio for the Dart Kart event and run Mid-Ohio in the kart, as well as get back to Grand Nationals and running some more national events next year. So that's my hope. We'll see if we get there.
Yeah. So in one sentence, explain to listeners, you're referencing Lorain. There's a new complex being built there. So in a sentence or two, explain to listeners what's going on out there.
Think of it as a all-around motorsports facility where they're going to have indoor karting, rental karts, outdoor rental karts, some simulators, and then a bigger pro track for 2-cycle, 4-cycle karts. Really a lot of money going into it. A lot of progress has been made, and it's going to be a really nice facility.
Yeah, the listeners can follow online as the construction's going on, but it went from talk to bulldozers and excavators going 100 miles an hour.
Absolutely.
Out there. So it's exciting to see for our sport for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's came a long way in a very short time. You know, there's always roadblocks with everything, getting stuff rolling, but once those roadblocks were down, full steam ahead.
Yeah. Think back to a piece of advice that you got early in your motorsports career. What is it, and how often do you refer back to it?
I think relax is probably the best one. Everybody starts overthinking, I think, a lot of things, you know, grabbing the wheel, gritting your teeth. And with that, you're not reacting, you know. I liken it kind of to drumming. You got to stay loose to play fast. You're stiff. Your bearing sticks in the head. You're not getting the speed. You're not getting the agility, if you will. So it's like always just breathe and relax. Usually on the kart stuff, when I'm going down the straight, I'll take my hands and kind of fan my fingers out and just relax the hands and be like, all right, breathe. Remember, take a couple breaths and So definitely relax and breathe.
I smiled when you mentioned grit your teeth. So we were at the Bridgestone Firestone testing grounds in Akron for an event, and they were showing us the new Bridgestone tires and these BMW M3s basically. And you know, I'm in the driver's seat, and there's an actual instructor. These folks all had race experience, some NASCAR, some IMSA. And I go out for my first session, and the guy just says, "You got to relax, man. You are gripping." He's like, "Look at your teeth. You're just gritting your teeth." And I'm like, "You know what? You're right." So the next sessions I ended up going fastest time of day for everyone there except the instructors.
Yeah, awesome.
And you know how many years I've been behind the wheel, but he was right. I mean, he could see it. So that's why I had the big smile when you said that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a big one. Just relaxing, because you get too much in the moment, you know, trying to chase somebody down until you're just hyper focused, like but just relax and everything will come to you.
All right. So. If someone were to approach you now and say, Eric, I want to get into this, being motorsports in general, what would be the advice you offer them?
I mean, really just see what you kind of want to do. And based on, you know, kind of my experience too with the Champ car that we spoke on earlier, just, you know, see what's around, because I've talked to friends that wanted to get into it, and just kind of after they started looking at things, you know what, maybe I don't want to drive, maybe I want to do something different. So just look at all the aspects of it and kind of learn the scenarios, if you will.
Yeah.
You know what's going on. I think that helps, because you know you don't want to start spending hundreds of dollars on stuff and then go, maybe this isn't the right for me. So it's definitely look into where you want to go. Talk to more than one person, because everybody's experiences are different. You know, I've talked to guys that have, you know, talked me into doing one thing, and then I get there, I'm like, this isn't for me. And then talk to everybody like, oh, that wasn't for me because of this. Like, oh yeah, I'm that way too. So it's definitely talk to more than one person, kind of get the feel of everything.
Yeah. I want to stay on karting for just another minute or two. So you spent a lot of time out at Boss Pro.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
do you do high voltage as well?
Yeah, not as frequently, but every now and then I get down there. So.
All right. So for the listeners outside Northern Ohio, those are our two closest indoor karting facilities. So I know I see your name, you know, on the weekly series, always at the top out at Boss Pro. How do you use that indoor karting to sharpen your skill in the off season?
Really, going out to Boss on the off season, it keeps the seat time momentum going up, rather than just being very stagnant. Because I've taken like months off, and I'll go there and I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm a couple tenths slower. What the heck's going on here? But yeah, it's just adapting. And the great part at Boss too, when we do the challenge nights out there, it's not the same layout every time. We change up the track enough, so I feel like that helps me anytime I go to a new track, learning different layouts and everything. So even though I might be fast on this layout, I might not be as fast on this layout. And it's just relearning those turns as fast as we can, because we get maybe one practice outing and then, all right, everybody go. So it really helps keep the seat time fresh more than anything.
Yeah. And you think seat time is important? Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like the more I'm on it, the more I'm just laser focused on top of it, and the more I'm out of it, it seems a little bit to keep it going or to get it going again. So definitely would love to go every week, but yeah, at least once a month or so to keep it going in the off season.
Yeah, we don't have the last name Rockefeller, so we're not going every week, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had you on the podcast earlier in 2024, and it was a goals podcast. You attended an open house we had at Track First. And you shared something that I have not forgotten about. And it was a story about you were at a karting event and you had forgotten something you had to run back.
Yep.
And for the listeners, you have multiple sclerosis.
Yes, sir.
And MS. And I want you to share that story. And I want to talk about how you manage it, because I think it's really important for the listener to understand that you don't have to be the perfect person to be in the sport.
Right.
You can be dealing with all sorts of different things, not be the fastest. Maybe there's some health issues. Tell us that story that you told in that podcast earlier this year.
Yeah. So out at Newcastle in Indiana, it was for the Grand Nationals last year, actually. Made it all the way to the final for the day. It's kind of nice what they do for the very final, rather than just putting you out on the false grid. And then, when your heat's up, go ahead and go. You actually push out on the kart stand onto the actual grid itself. They interview kind of like the top 10 and go from there. So I had all this time in the world. And then they're like, all right, time to get going. Take the karts off the stand. Me and my mechanic take the cart off the stand. I look in the seat. Where's my helmet? My helmet was back at the trailer, which was probably a half a mile away, if I had to guess, because we were pitted almost at the far end. Like I said, hundreds of carts at this event. So each cart has a family with it, and usually a camper or trailer. So we were pretty far out. Without even thinking of it, just because who I am, I sprinted back to the trailer as fast as I could. I made it to the trailer, just collapsed when I got there, and I was like, okay, probably shouldn't do this, but we're going to do this. I put my helmet on, ran back to the grid. As they were starting, I see them leaving, and I'm hopping over the fence as they're kind of closing it. And when I landed, because I couldn't feel my feet, because that's one of my symptoms, like start to not feel my feet if I have like a episode. Mm-hmm. And when I landed, I just had no feeling. It just fell right to my knees. And the worst part was just staring at my cart maybe 50 yards away. Oh my. Just like watching the field drive away, and I'm like looking at it, like, you can do it, you can do it. But in my head, knowing, what could happen, because, it's very physical. So if I was already at that point, I wasn't going to make it. And the race director was like, you can make it, you can make it. And I told him, like, nope, go ahead, pull the cart off. I'm like, I can't physically go out there. I'm like, right now I'm okay. But in a lap or two, I'm just going to be a hazard. And I don't want to be a hazard and ruin somebody else's race. So I made the decision to pull myself out of that one. Unfortunately, was kicking myself a lot for that. But after speaking to the race director after the fact too, he said, you're one of the smartest racers I've ever talked to. Like no one else would have ever, that I've ever talked to would have ever been like, nope, take me out. But I just knew I was going to be a hazard, just knowing I needed to listen to my body at that point. And I kick myself every day for it still. But, you live and you learn.
Disappointing for sure, but definitely the right call for you and for the other competitors. Mm-hmm. So how do you manage that? How do you, knowing that this could happen, mm-hmm. A lot of people would probably just say, I'm out. I'm not going to do this sport, and I'm going to sit on the couch. But how have you managed it and overcome it to be able to participate at some of the highest levels in our sport?
So, like a lot of stuff, see everybody in the cars with the cool shirts. Well, I have an ice vest that's very similar. A lot of the F1 guys you'll see kind of wearing them. If you see like the pre-grid when they got their suits kind of halfway off. Mm-hmm. I like the ice vest better than the in-car like cool shirts, just because I can wear it in the cart as well. Also good for 6 pounds of ballast, which is also good.
Something you need.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just keeping my core temperature cool, because thankfully I'm pretty good with heat management. I'm actually the other side of the coin. The cold gets me, but most people with multiple sclerosis, heat is a big factor, and that's what shuts them down. And I was honestly, when I was doing the SCCA physical, I was honestly kind of worried on it, because one of the questions is, excessive cabin heat and over 100 something degrees. And I was worried my doctor was going to be like, oh, what about this? But knowing my abilities and what I can do, they were fine with signing me off. And thankfully, not had an issue with that. But yeah, it's just really just listening to my body, knowing like, hey, if I feel something tingling or this isn't going to be good, I just know, hey, I shouldn't do this weekend. And the other part is just the mental stuff. motorsports is mental on its own, but then adding the MS side of it too. Like again, I do pretty well with my physical stuff, but I do struggle more with the mental, neurological stuff more than anything. So adding that on top of the motorsports mental stress, it's just having that positive mental attitude more than anything. And I always like to say I'm handy capable instead of handicapped.
Oh, I love that.
Just, I look at something and go, okay, this is what's going on. How do I move past it versus just kind of throwing my hands up and giving up? And I think that's part of it. I remember when I was first diagnosed, my first treatment, they had to keep me in the hospital just to make sure I didn't have any reactions or anything like that.
How long ago was that?
8 years.
Okay.
Yeah, about 8 years actually coming up. But the caseworker came in to see like, what do I need, this or that. And I was actually, laying there in bed, researching MS, doing all that. And the caseworker I've never came into a patient's room and they're researching, their own diagnosis, doing all of this. And she's like, honey, if you keep that attitude, you're going to be just fine. So that's always kind of resonated with me too. Like, right, just keep with it and go with it. But yeah, it just knowing that I'm capable of it and just listening to your body and going from there.
Yeah. So PMA, positive mental attitude. That's so important. Matter of fact, I don't know. Do you know Marlon Sumlin?
Yes.
Okay. That's his license plate. PMA wins.
Yeah, Marlon's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you have that at the center of what you do. Have you been able to almost be an advocate for PMA, other people with MS, and getting more involved in sports?
In somewhat of a way. The one cool thing that my kart team actually did, the 488 performance team, when we got our suits made year before last, I told the guys, I'm like, hey, I wouldn't mind an orange ribbon just on my suit for MS awareness. Like you said, I kind of want to be an advocate for it, being, hey, I want to show you that MS isn't like it's not a death sentence. You can still have a fun life and do fun things. But when we got all the suits, it was kind of cool because everybody on the team put the orange ribbon on there for MS awareness. So I was like pretty happy about that. And then after that, it started, and I also put MS Society on there as well. After that, I'd be at the track and people would start asking me about it, like, oh, who do you know that has MS? My so-and-so has MS. I'm like, well, actually me. And no way, really? So it's really like just advocating. So I actually love talking about it because nobody thinks of it that way. I've had people like, oh, really? I didn't know you had MS. I'm like, yeah, no, I like it that way. That it doesn't define me. So
I love that too. One last thing about karting. So I believe it's the Buckeye Karting Challenge that your most proud racing moment.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Racing in the rain, right?
Yeah. So back in 2022 for the Buckeye Karting Challenge that year, I haven't had much rain race experience in the kart, and it's always in everybody's head like, oh man, it's raining, but it's the great equalizer. What do you do? So I was actually able to do a perfect round, max points. I first in qualifying, first in the pre-final, first in the final with the fastest lap in the final. I was blown away that I actually pulled that off. I didn't realize that until after the fact. We were out at dinner and my buddy actually ran the points and he's like, you realize that was a perfect round? And we were at Taco Bell and I couldn't stand up. I was standing in line waiting to order. I just dropped crouched down like, are you kidding me? So just to do that and then it be in the rain, like I was really happy because, with that being like a regional, almost national type event,
right?
There's no slouches. I'll tell you that. It's just great to run with peers that are on your level and to have that type of a fight for it and come out ahead like that. I was very happy. So that probably proudest karting moment there for sure.
That's really cool. So I am going to have to wrangle you up for, we did the, what do they call it? It's an endurance karting series that travels the country. Yes. We did it at Pitt this year, a bunch of us from the race team. And so we might have to coerce you into being on the team.
I'm open.
That was a really fun event. And very competitive. We were probably in the bottom third. Most of our team had never been in a kart, like that before.
Well, that kart coaching, I'll get you guys going next year.
we could use it. Let's talk a little bit about your career. You work with a company, DEI.
Yes.
I've seen you at trade shows, right? PRI, I think. Are you making it out to SEMA this year?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, right now we're putting the final touches on our new booth for this year. Headed out here in a couple of weeks. Yeah. So be SEMA and PRI again this year. Yep.
Awesome. So what do you do for DEI, and what is DEI?
So DEI, design engineering. A lot of people when I started are like, oh my gosh, you're working for Dale and her engine. And I'm like, no, design engineering out of Avon Lake, Ohio. I'm a sales rep. We do heat and sound control for aftermarket, anything racing, automotive, even do some home, marine, and industrial stuff as well. So basically any heat or sound problem you have, we got you covered as far as like boom mat for damping material or exhaust wrap, reflective gold, any heat issues. Get you going.
Yeah. You keep heat away from where it wants to go. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tell me about how this fits into your racing life. Is there some overlap? Do you get to learn some stuff from your job or run into people that can help you in your motorsports career?
Yeah, a little bit of both. There definitely is some overlap. Every now and then it can get a little overwhelming of like, okay, I just want to break away from motorsports for a day. So it's like, racing 2 or 3 weekends in a row and then go work a trade show or back and forth. But it's great being able to meet people. I don't think I'd ran into you if I wasn't there,
Yeah.
So, definitely has helped me. And then just as well as, looking for sponsorship as well, like what we work with people, seeing what people ask for, seeing what not to ask for, just certain things with that. And just being able to travel and meet people and go to different places too that I never thought. Like I've, years and years, I've always wanted to go to SEMA, but never had a chance.
And here you are.
And here I am. So.
Yeah. All right. You hit on sponsorship. Mm-hmm. What's the craziest sponsorship request you've received? That just was like, what in the world are they asking for?
I think most of the time it's the amount of money people are asking for what little they say they're going to do or don't even say they're going to do anything. I think a lot of people don't realize it really is a two-way street. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to give you a couple $1,000s and you put a sticker on the car, run the product. It's like there's a lot more that's needed. I know you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get a lot of requests and it's honestly made it hard for me to kind of ask because I look at it and go like, I don't want to ask that because I know my reaction sometimes, just having that deliverable. Like I see a lot of wants with no deliverables. That's really the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. It probably gives companies a bad taste as well as, hey, here are these racers, grassroots racers. I always like to use the old, hey, give me $500 and I'll put your logo on my quarter panel. Well, that does me no good as a business owner, right? So where do you want to take the motorsport, the endurance racing? I mean, where do you hope that leads to?
So the endurance racing, I just really just want to keep driving as much as I can and just hit, I'll call them bucket list tracks more than anything, growing up looking at these tracks, driving on a simulator, watching them on TV. It's like, definitely a couple tracks I wouldn't mind hitting that I know Champ Car and other endurance race series go to. So just getting the feet wet, if you will, now, getting the experience to maybe step up to something like doing more AER or World Racing League or something like that, a little bit higher end. But yeah, with that comes a little bit more buckets of cash too. So got to work on that part.
That is true. Do you set a budget each year, or is it sort of just, we'll see what happens?
It's the past couple of years has been really like, all right, let's see what the schedule looks like. Let's see what everybody else is kind of going to do, kind of mesh those together and then kind of start knocking stuff off. I wouldn't say have a budget, but I would say have a cap of like, okay, I don't want to go over this. Unfortunately, I have most years.
It's tough to say no, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, it's having a budget is good, but I always tend to go over it. So anytime I plan, it never works out. So I think that I'm just going back to winging it.
You want to learn more about a track. You want to learn more about the handling of your chassis and your 206, or you want to learn more about how to do better in the car. Mm-hmm. Where do you go for resources?
I go to YouTube. I try to watch as many driver videos as I can. Again, back to don't just watch one, watch multiple ones. I'll try to find a video, like if I'm watching a car and it's a BMW, the rear wheel drive BMW, I'll try to find something that's front wheel drive like the Volkswagen just to make sure. But I also watch the rear wheel drive too, because you never know, different lines. It might be driving a better line, doesn't matter on the car. So yeah, I'll watch multiple videos on YouTube, car or kart, doesn't matter. I'll even pull up aerial views of the track, a couple track maps I've purchased, and kind of going through page by page, making notes while I'm going there and talking to people that I know that might have been at these tracks. And then once I'm there, track walks are imperative. Those more than anything. A few years ago, I was able to do a track walk at Mid-Ohio with Dave Lancaster.
Yeah.
And he showed me some things on the club course, going into the keyhole, that I cut 4 or 5 seconds off my time the next day. And it was just like, all I did was walk the track. But I'd watched so many videos, everything talked, but until I was actually standing on the track, looking at the curve, talking to Dave, it didn't click. And then same thing with the kart stuff. Pretty much every turn, one of my friends taught me is like, okay, especially in the kart, okay, sit down at the entry of the turn. Don't just stand there, because it's, you're a couple feet higher than you're going to be on the track. So actually sit and look at the apex. Okay, how am I going to go from here to there? Sit at the apex, look at the exit of the turn, see where you want to end up, and just all those things. Because again, in the kart, everything's going by so quick. It's actually sitting there and thinking about it. It's definitely, but yeah, track walks are imperative. And plus, you don't know what's changed from when the video was shot. Has it been repaved? Has it been resealed? Is there something that happened at a support race, or a race earlier in the week that might have changed the surface of the track? You don't know. So definitely walk the tracks.
And you have a personal car that you want to get back on track, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So that was just honestly the first car I ever bought with my own money.
What is it?
Volkswagen Mark IV.
The Mark IV we talked about earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so I bought that my senior year of high school. Started life as a diesel TDI, and it was great at the time doing the BMX, because I was traveling around the country, riding contests, doing that, and I had a bike rack on top. So I'm like, sold.
Yeah.
And like I said, it checked the box of like, oh, okay, Volkswagen cool guy, skate park, we're good. It's been through plenty of iterations, but like I said, after the first track day, it was like been full on race car after that. But had some self-induced electrical gremlins, been chasing for the past couple of years, but I've had so many other things, been able to do so many options with running Champ Car, running the kart. It's kind of been a back burner type thing. And now moving into this year, the itch is there to get back going with it. I've been able to work through some of those problems, self-induced problems with a good friend that's a Volkswagen tech that came over, worked through those electrical gremlins. I used to be an MECB certified installer.
Oh yeah.
So I was a little bit too confident in lightening my harness, a little bit too much liquid confidence, honestly, when I was doing it. So I've been chasing those gremlins for a while, but thankfully I think we're on the right path now. And it's just, I would love to get that car back on track next year. It's really only HPDE, but seeing what I could do to it to get it to some wheel to wheel, like I really would like to get back and doing maybe grid life with it next year again. But doing something with it, getting back going, because being on the Champ Car team has taught me so much more that I didn't know with this car, that going through and kind of fixing my mistakes of, I should have done this, but I didn't know any better at the time. So, yeah, so that's kind of the goal one of the goals for next year is getting that thing back out on track. But so far, so good.
Oh, I can't wait to see it out there and see you out there throwing some laps around.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you hoped we'd cover?
I can't really think of it, honestly.
No?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that leaves just one question.
Okay.
Have you ever been late to grid?
Minus the helmet issue. Thankfully, no. Yeah, minus the helmet thing. And I think that's one of my, just me as a person, I was always growing up, it's if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. So I always try to be the very early person. I'm usually the first one there. So,
so that's your secret is, early is on time.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's something that's just been, ingrained into my brain as a kid is like, if you're not, if you're on time, you're late.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And late is fired.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Don't want to be fired.
Well, Eric, it was great having you on the podcast. Thanks for sharing a very personal motorsports journey with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Bill. I was very excited to be here.